Hello, my name is Alicia Brown. Over the past 6 weeks, I've had the opportunity to work on a behaviorist biography milestone project. I would like to take the next 10 minutes or so to share with you about a phenomenal applied behavior analyst named Betty Hart. Betty Hart was a prominent applied behavior analysis researcher who pioneered incidental teaching as an applied behavior analysis intervention strategy, with Todd Risley, who served initially as her mentor and then later as a collaborative research partner. She focused on low income African American preschool students living in the Juniper Gardens Public Housing Project and who also attended the Turner House preschool program. The purpose of the research was to increase the functional language skills by enlarging the students' vocabulary acquisition and usage. Betty Hart's journey to becoming a distinguished applied behavior analyst was truly a unique one. She was born on July 15, 1927 in Carr County, Texas. She was raised in South Dakota as a child. She received her undergraduate degree in English from the University of California, Berkeley in 1949, and before beginning her graduate studies, she spent the 1950s traveling in Europe in the countries of France, Switzerland, and Russia. During the early 1960s, Betty Hart became an accountant, translator, and then a teacher in Tucson, Arizona, and Seattle, Washington. She received her teaching certificate in 1965 from the Laboratory Preschool at the University of Washington in Seattle. The Laboratory Preschool was renowned for its research on child behavior at that time, and she also had the opportunity to work under the direction of Cindy Bijou, who pioneered operant research with children and who created a demonstration classroom that included programmed instruction and classroom management for children with learning disabilities. Betty Hart did not begin her graduate studies until her late 30s. As a result of her work at the Laboratory Preschool, she was recruited to the University of Kansas to be a part of the newly established Human Development Program, which focused on behavior analysis and development. She received her master's degree from the University of Kansas in 1967. She then received her doctoral degree in developmental and child psychology from the University of Kansas in 1969. Because of her significant contribution to the field of applied behavior analysis, she was granted the status of Emeritus Associate Research Professor and Scientist in the Schiffel-Busch Institute for Lifespan Studies at the University of Kansas. Betty Hart died September of 2012 from lung cancer in Tucson, Arizona. In order to appreciate Hart's work, we need to understand the context of her research studies. The Turner House Preschool at the Juniper Garden Children's Project was where she conducted her research. The preschool was created in the early 1960s under the Kennedy administration. It was designed to help children who were poor improve their standard of living by developing their academic skills in the areas of vocabulary acquisition and usage. The intervention strategy used was incidental teaching with the hope that the verbal behaviors of the preschool would be reinforced and then changed. Under the Johnson administration, the Juniper Gardens Children Project received federal funding for research and training. Betty Hart at that time was the lead teacher. Todd Risley was the program director. Hart's research focus was increasing the language acquisition and increasing the language acquisition and usage of low-income African American preschool students in poor urban settings. Because incidental teaching was an intervention strategy that she used, I just wanted to review some of the characteristics of that strategy. Incidental teaching allows for interaction between one adult and one child, but it's the child who initiates the interaction by making a request. Incidental teaching occurs naturally in an unstructured environment, such as free play. It also provides an opportunity for the teacher to transmit information in an unstructured environment. It provides an opportunity for the child to practice, and it reinforces the child's use of descriptive language in preparing for academic learning. In establishing use of descriptive adjectives in the spontaneous speech of disadvantaged preschool students, Hart's research showed the following. The study was conducted to give low-income African American preschool students an opportunity to develop appropriate forms of speech and to enrich their descriptive vocabularies in their daily use. A research question was, could the preschoolers acquire the use of descriptive adjectives in conjunction with and without the use of nouns? Hart's study considered what environmental changes would be needed to increase the academic success of Black children living in poor socioeconomic communities. Hart's research found that traditional preschool methods were ineffective in reinforcing the preschoolers' verbal behavior when they had to use descriptive speech in a non-structured environment such as free play, even though they were able to use descriptive adjectives in a structured learning environment. The preschoolers' environment did not lend itself to reinforcing the functional use of noun-adjective combinations in their daily language. And functional environments need to be created where the contingencies for the desired verbal behaviors are reinforced. In incidental teaching of language in the preschool, Hart's research study was conducted to observe the effectiveness of incidental teaching in developing language skills of low-income African American preschool students. The research basis for the research question was, how effective is the use of incidental teaching in the acquisition and use of language? Hart's study would focus on changing the verbal behavior of the preschool students by including compound sentences in the learning environment. The implementation of incidental teaching resulted in increased verbal behaviors for the preschool. Hart's research findings also found that preschoolers demonstrated that they could generalize the use of compound sentences in an unstructured environment where the verbal behavior is reinforced as their skill set is strengthened. The conclusion of Hart's research studies are the following. The lack of academic achievement for African Americans in the lowest socioeconomic bracket was due to the environment and not to genetics. Low-income African American preschoolers' verbal behavior did increase when their language use was reinforced in formal instructional settings and then carried over to the incidental teaching environments within the preschool setting. Low-income minority parents did attempt to engage them in social conversations and nurture their children prior to the age of 4. The language disparity is due to the limited number of vocabulary words used in the home. If I had the chance to interview Betty Hart, I would ask the following. What factors led you to teach preschool students after working as an accountant and translator? Number 2, Sidney Bijou was known as a pioneer in the field of child development and behavior analysis. He was also the first to use applied behavior analysis in autism. Given your experiences with Sidney Bijou in Seattle, Washington, why did you choose to focus on African American preschoolers in the lowest socioeconomic class and who lived with their families in the Juniper Garden public housing community while you were a grad student at the University of Kansas? Another question would be, What drew you to the program at the University of Kansas? What has been your most rewarding experience as an applied behavior analyst who has worked with minority preschool students in the lowest socioeconomic bracket? And what advice would you give to an applied behavior analyst who desires to work with minorities in the lowest socioeconomic group? These are my references. And I want to thank you for taking the time to learn about Betty Hart.